Scotland has a new manager, Sébastien Pocognoli. I don't think anybody saw that coming. There's loads to get talking about, so let's get stuck in. Right, this is the No Scotland No Party podcast, supported by Bob Bags, official boxers of the men's national team. And if you'd like to get your hands on a £20 Bob Bag voucher, all you need to do is engage with us on our socials, and we'll be picking someone at random after the Slovenia match to win that £20 voucher. Right, let's go.
We know we ain't no football experts, but we all feel the same about the beautiful game. The game. No Scotland, no party. Podcast for the Tartan Army.
Okay, welcome everyone. We've got the original lineup with us today. We've got Dave Watson. How you getting on, Dave?
I'm fine, Craig. Good to be back here.
Good. And the one and only Craig Ferguson. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well.
Good. Right, we have a new manager, lads, and his name is Sébastien Pocognoli, we think. He's 39 years old. He's Belgian. None of us had this guy on our radar at all. I don't know where they picked him up from, but yeah, we have a new manager. Craig, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my initial thoughts are probably one of overwhelming excitement, to be honest with you. I think even the podcast that we recorded back when we'd just been crashed out of the World Cup and we were talking about what's next, especially in the wake of the Steve Clarke resigning news, this is exactly what I said I felt as if we had to go for. I felt, one, someone young I think would be really, really good, but two, for me, I was excited by the prospect of a foreign manager. I just feel as if there wasn't any good alternatives that were Scottish. I think we needed a bit of a breath of fresh air. And look, I'm not going to come on here and pretend like I know too much about Pocognoli, but what I will say is I'm excited by it. I think that it was the exact kind of thing that on paper I was asking for, and I'm a bit surprised, I think, like many other Scottish fans are, to see that this is the route that the SFA have went down, but I'm definitely pleased by it. Yeah,
I mean, I was sitting back just waiting for it to be Naismith or McCann, and then I was just waiting, usual negative spirit. But yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised. I think they've thought outside the box of this one. So hats off to them. I think
a lot of people were in the exact same boat, though. Do you know what I mean? It's especially, you've seen everything on Twitter, and especially when the noise around the whole thing died down a good bit. I think that we were all kind of just sat there like, it's going to be Naismith. I mean, I even remember I was in filming something at Hampden the other day and someone texted me a photo of Naismith being like, if you see this man's face, don't tell me. And I was like, no, I'll be on the lookout as well. But I do think that is what some people were probably assuming was just going to happen. So it's refreshing to see. Dave, what's your thoughts on it all?
So as you know, and as quite a few of our viewers know, one of our group who goes to just about every single one of the games, home and away, is actually a Belgian. Mm-hmm. So that's Sabine, for those who know her. And so obviously I got in touch with Sabine, and so Craig and I tried to get her onto this podcast. Actually, it was kind of obvious that we'd like to get her on and talk about him, because she's watched him play lots of times in Belgium. She's also, been to games where he was the manager, so she knows a lot more about him, honestly, than we do. But unfortunately, Sabine's even more busy, I think, than you are, Fergie, and we just couldn't manage to make it work. So she sent me some comments and some things that that I can give as background, really as a Belgian perspective. And probably the first bit of good news is that the Belgians don't try and say his full name either. Okay, so they call him Poco, or some call him Seb, and I think that might be a lot easier for us to call him Poco. I like that. I like Pocognoli, as Craig was saying a minute ago. So that's the first thing. I think also, he's very proud of where he's from, Sabine says, and he grew up in a suburb of Liège, and he now lives with his family, basically in the same suburb. It's kind of the next suburb along, but really it's the same place. So he's really proud of his roots. He's a big family man. He's been married for about 13 years. He's got 2 kids. I think they're quite young. Sabine thinks the daughter's about 7 and the son's a little bit older. So relatively young, and he's really keen on the family, really into the family. So that's the first thing, maybe. Character-wise, he's known in Belgium as being very competitive. And, for him, there's no such thing as a friendly, almost in a training session as well. He's got to win, and he's got to win everything. And he's also a perfectionist, and really wants, always, it goes, I suppose, with always wanting to win, that he's, everything's got to be as good as he can possibly do. He's good at delegating, but he wants to know what's going on. So he keeps the overview, he keeps himself really in touch, but he also leaves the operational matters and obviously on pitch decisions to his staff or indeed to the players on the pitch. I think one of the other interesting things she said is that in Belgium, he's got a reputation as a manager for being not for just changing things on the pitch, not making substitutions or changing formation just for the sake of it. All right. But he's got a reputation, having said that, for analysing the game really well during the match. And when he sees something that he thinks needs to be changed, he changes it quickly. He visualizes what he wants and he changes it quickly. And I think, honestly, we might notice that as a change compared to, a lot of us have, for years now, for several years now, I've been kind of laughing that we bring substitutes on in the 93rd minute or whatever, and I don't know, but I don't think we're going to see that kind of thing from Poco, as I'm going to call him. So those are, obviously he's young, and Sabine says, laughingly, some people in Belgium are saying, well, he should still be playing because, Ronaldo's still playing and Messi's still playing. They're both older than him. So how can he be a national manager? Why isn't he playing? He likes to laugh at himself as well. That's another thing. And Sabine says a story in Belgium is where he knew he was being watched by a French club for a transfer when he was a player. So he knew in advance he was. And he managed to get himself a red card in the game. And he was interviewed afterwards. And he was laughing away about how he basically screwed it up and got a red card. And he didn't suppose the transfer would be on now, etc. So he does like to laugh at himself. Something else, I think we probably all saw from his interview, that we've probably seen the video interview, that his English is very good. Yep. He likes to learn languages. And he likes to be able to talk to players in their own language. So, he's learned bits of Spanish, and people are impressed and also kind of laugh at some of his efforts in some of the languages. So maybe we're going to see him not only speaking English, but developing his Scottish dialect as well. We'll see. But I suspect, I think he's into that. And then the last thing Sabine said, which I think we do know, but she highlighted that he's very well known for wanting to play a formation of 3-4-1-2, which I think is probably quite a big question. I think we should probably talk about that some more rather than me go on now. But I think that's obviously a thing for us to be thinking about, and I guess he's really thinking about it in terms of how do the Scotland players fit into that, or what does he do as a transition, etc.
Well, that was it. It was the first thing that, as soon as I heard that, I started scribbling down potentially who could fit into that. And really, I think we've got 8 players here who are pretty much first names in the team sheet. We've got Robertson, Tierney, although his first name in the team sheet, he's on the bench usually. Hickey, Gilmore, Ferguson, McTominay, McGinn, and Gannon Doak. Now, I think this formation is great news for Tierney because he's just going to slot into that back three, the left side of that back three. Yeah. I'm really struggling to see where Gannon Doak's going to fit into the squad. I just don't know what's going to happen. I saw a few people as well saying that McTominay might be up front in a 2, but I think he'd probably sit behind the 2.
It's the 1.
I don't know. Like, do you think Gannon Doak can fit into that 4? Or
can Gannon Doak not play as one of the 2? No,
I don't know. Does he play? Can he play that high up?
Potentially a bit too central, isn't it? I'm not entirely sure.
Well, I suppose this is what he's going to. He's going to have a good look at this during the Nations League matches. Which and to be honest, I'd be quite happy if he lost them all. But at the end of it, he knew exactly what his best team was.
Yeah, because you're seeing Hickey and Robertson as being the 2 wide players in the 4.
Yeah,
with Tierney as one of the back 3, and I guess then we discuss whether Hendry and whoever or something, presumably as we stand now. Right?
I don't know who the defenders would be. I think he's got a few more options there. I think there's a lot of players that have been in the squad.
See, but if you do that formation, right, and if you've got Gilmer and Ferguson in the middle of the 4, and you've got McTominay as the one, McGinn's got to be one of the 2 then, or McGinn's not in the team.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a real struggle to piece everyone in.
No. I mean, it raises another question, though, which I think my memory is probably going from what we talked about in which podcast during the World Cup. But I'm sure I remember we had a discussion about when was the last time McGinn had a good game for Scotland. And, so, I mean, we may see that Poco comes with a whole lot of surprises, and surprises us with effectively 1 or 2 of the older players no longer that we might think we're all part of it, but not being part,
Shocked if
and
McGinn didn't get a
well,
place in the team. I really would.
I mean, I agree, but you know,
Yeah. On that note of potentially coming in with surprises, I think a question for probably both of you, Dave, firstly, what sort of things do you think that you'd be happy to see? Is there specific names or any surprises that you think he might bring in that you would be quite welcome to? You know, new manager, new chapter, that's probably going to come with some big differences, I'd assume.
yeah. I mean, I think in terms of the names, probably it's the strikers that we're going to focus on, isn't it? Because look at what Craig's just done now, where he says the 8 players, you know, and then I'm talking about Hendry and so on. You know, it's not obvious who the strikers are. And if he wants to play a formation, either immediately or transition and develop to that, where he's got 2 strikers, we're going to need 2 good strikers, right? It's stating the obvious. In fact, we need more than 2, really, but we obviously need. And I think, I don't know if it would be a surprise or not, but I think that, you know, Robbie Ewer's got to be, you know, in there now, and you know, he's got to be featuring within this. If you start thinking about it, I mean, I think he'll almost start again with the strikers, you know, and say, you know, and look at the, you know, the 5 that we had. You know, and I mean, I think he's really going to be looking at it and saying, honestly, who's there? So maybe Adams is still there, for example, right? So maybe Adams, but I think there's Ewer, there's, you know, Bowie as well. I think has got to be, you know, got to be in there. McBurney, I think, you know, I mean, obviously it's the closed season, but if McBurney gets off to, you know, does well for Hull in the Premier League, which is tough, by the way, it's really tough. But if he does do well, you've got, I mean, you know, it's hard to imagine that you won't be looking at McBurney because we just don't have a lot of options. And he wants to play 2 strikers, not 1. We were struggling when it was 1.
Yeah.
So that's what. So I think. So that's what I think.
Barney Stewart. I'd love them to have a look at Barney Stewart as well.
Yeah.
But hey, didn't we get it right with Robbie Ewer? We've been banging on about him for about a year. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Once again, we got it right, and Clark never listened. He should have been listening all along.
I think to be fair, Craig, it was you in particular that was banging on about it. So we should give you the credit because you were the one who every now and then would say, "What about Robbie Ewer?"
Yeah.
No, so I think so Craig, I think you get the credit, at least from my point of view.
I think everyone will be kind of watching on with yours progress with a keen eye. It's like an incredible move as well. So I think we're all going to be kind of watching on that and hoping that it goes really, really well, because you obviously do this thing as a Scotland fan where you're like, oh, right, this must be our answer now. Come on, you cling to the hope. So fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. But it is really, really exciting times as well, to be honest. Obviously, I've got the Nations League fixtures and that coming up as well. So I'm really, really excited about the step that we've taken, to be quite honest.
Yeah. I mean, on the formation, so maybe you know more about this than me. It's one I should have asked Sabine, actually. But, you know, I'm not sure, you know, how flexible or inflexible he is on the 3-4-1-2.
Yeah.
You know, because
from what I can gather, there was a few formations he did play, but that was the one he tended to drift. Right. I think a 4-3-3 might have been another one.
Yeah, because then you start feeling, you know, if he's, you know, he's just coming at the job, he doesn't have a lot of time because whatever I don't know when he's got to announce the squad, you know, one of you may know, but it's not very long till he's going to be doing this, so he doesn't have a lot of time. You know, you could imagine he might stick with, you know, 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 or whatever while he gets to know the players and while he thinks about it a bit more and thinks, how are we going to do this? But you know, then, you know, I remember, what was it, Ruben Amorim in Man United, who basically said he'd never play any other formation, if you know. so
yeah. Well, I think, I mean, what going off the kind of notes that you read as well, I think the fact that you're saying that he can be quite malleable in terms of seeing things on the pitch and making changes in the game, I think that's definitely a good sign, because I think that one thing you don't want to see is set stubbornness, especially if it's not going to be giving results. That being said, you obviously want to have a manager that has a philosophy that we know that, right, on paper, this is how the way that Scotland play. And I think, see, to be honest, for years, regardless of the fact that we've got to these tournaments, I think that, like, no one could really particularly say this is how Scotland have been playing for ages, other than crap, basically. But, you know, not to be too sort of self-deprecating. So I think that it's going to be really refreshing, especially if we see a style of play that we're actually trying to play. And look, I don't really know how I feel about the 3 at the back formations and stuff as well, but you know, I'm open to it. I'm open to seeing what the future holds. But I do hope that it's not completely set in the ways, and there are going to be slight options for changing in different formations, etc.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing, we looked at it before that the back three didn't really work for Scotland, but that just might have been under Clark and what Clark was trying to get them to do.
It worked at times, I think. It worked
Yeah.
at times, but never over a sustained period. I don't think it was never. We were never able to replicate it, and it worked well. Not in big tournaments or anything like that. And at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for, obviously.
Yeah.
I think so. I completely agree with what you just said, Fergie. I mean, I think that it worked at times, but most of the time it didn't. And I
Yeah.
think that's because with the not enough of the players had enough practice and familiarity with it.
Yeah.
So, the times I remember thinking it was working was when Tierney was one of the back three,
Mhm.
and according to how the game was going, Tierney was moving more into the midfield, and Tierney was a player who could carry the ball forward and give
Yeah.
you the extra man in midfield. And that there was a few games where that looked really promising and really good, but I just don't think we quite had the right, we didn't get enough experience of it, and not enough players quite understood how it was all working. So, as soon as Tierney was injured, that was, the thing was out the window again, because honestly,
Yeah.
the other players in the back three weren't able to do that.
Yeah.
And they seemed incapable of playing out the back when they had to play the back three as well. Remember we've talked about this when they've just passed it from end to end to end, not even stretching the game. It just nobody really seemed to know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that there's a wider issue with the playing out at the back in general. I think as well, especially with Scotland, and I'm interested to see if Poco's style is going to be, very intensely playing from the back. But we've seen it, especially in major tournaments, that these players oftentimes, say it as black and white as it is, crap the bed when it comes to playing out at the back in the major tournaments. As the Brazil game comes to mind instantly with recency bias. If we started that game relatively well in the first 5 minutes, I would say everyone can say that, and then you play out from the back, overconfidence, two mistakes, and then before you know it, we're chasing our tail. So I'm interested to see how that's going to be, but also seeing that confidence in the players. Is that a confidence thing purely because these players have the ability? I think a lot of the players do have the ability at times, but I don't know if it's, and we spoke about this in the last World Cup podcast, didn't we? Like, we don't really know what the issue is, whether it is confidence or what, but it'll be interesting to see what that philosophy is, whether it's the playing out from the back as well.
Yeah.
So we do have these Nation League matches coming up. 2 in September, 26th, 29th September, then another one, the next one, the 3rd, 6th October. So he's not got much time before the first two matches, and then it's still a quick turnaround until the next ones. It's probably not going to be until November when he's really had a chance to see most of the players playing and have a good idea of the squad that he's got. So realistically, what are we looking for out of these 4 matches? I mean, if we lose 4 matches, are people going to be calling for his head? Do you think he's going to be given that time to get his squad together and get his philosophy on the pitch?
I mean, the correct answer is no one should be, but the realistic answer is you'll probably have people a little unsettled if that is the case. But the context is a massive, massive part of it, and it's almost like what you said, Craig, in terms of like you wouldn't really mind us losing all of them if you can see what the kind of overarching ambition is or what we're driving towards. I think that most rational Scotland fans will be the exact same way with that. I think the results are going to be one thing with the Nations League, especially with it being a viable option as well for qualifying and stuff. So I do think it's to be taken very seriously. But if we know that we're pushing towards a way that we can see ourselves playing in the long term, that's what everyone's hoping for. And also newer faces coming in, hopefully good performances from faces who might end up being a staple under Pocognoli's sort of reign as Scotland manager, and maybe less of the familiar faces that some people grew to get a little tired of under Clark.
I mean, I think, I was going to say, I think that Poco is really going to focus these games on just getting to know the players, deciding what system to play. I think that he probably is, and he should be, very confident that one way or the other we're going to qualify for the home Euros anyway, right?
Yeah.
Because we know the different routes and so on, and we really ought to be qualifying anyway.
Yeah.
So on that basis, you can probably look at this Nations League and say, it's not going to be so critical for us, and therefore what he needs to do is develop a real system and have, a whole set of players that he knows fits into whatever system he decides he's going to play, to try then not only to confirm the qualification for the Euros next year, but also actually do something in the Euros. Right.
Wow.
However, I keep thinking about Sabine's thing where she said that for him he's extremely competitive and he hates to lose, and there's no such thing as a friendly. So then I think, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he's really going to go for it in these games. And really try. It's hard to know, right? We just don't know enough, so it's really hard.
And he's going to want, any new manager's going to want to come in and hit the ground running. I think obviously you say, like, you want to learn a lot of stuff from the first few games, and that is true, but like he's going to want to make an instant impact and see results and get people excited, get people talking. When you said that about the competitiveness, right, it perked my ears up, because not only am I the most competitive guy ever, right, I can't play a game of five-a-sides without wanting to win it with every ounce of my heart, but I do almost think that competitiveness is something that I think that we have lacked. There has been this mentality of whether it's for right or wrong, between whether it comes from the fans and beds into the team, of like this contentness with being there and just being the good fans. And it's the frustration that we literally all spoke about when we were like, when is that going to be, not enough? And I think that having a foreign manager for this is actually perfect, because you instantly remove that sort of, but we know we're Scotland, so getting there is just, good enough for us. He'll be looking at this squad and this team from an outsider looking in, a foreign point of view, going, you guys are just happy to be there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why? It needs to be more than that. So as soon as you said that about the competitiveness, I was like, well, fingers crossed that's a big, big part of it, because that's what we've been crying out for, especially in the tournaments.
Yeah, completely agree.
I couldn't agree more with that. I really could.
And I mean, if you look, I mean, just thinking about the Nations League games as well, right? And the comment about if we lose the first four, what's everybody going to be saying? I mean, away to Slovenia, the first game. If you think about the actual game, so that I mean, we might lose that, right? We might win that, we might, but we could lose that. You wouldn't be that surprised. Home to Switzerland, you couldn't be too surprised, honestly, if Switzerland beat us there. So say we lost the first two. I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised. I wouldn't be that worried, honestly, because I think we do have to look at the big picture. I think if we then lose away to North Macedonia and then we lose at home to Slovenia, then, which is the fourth one of these, then you start getting more. Then people might start getting more concerned, because I think we'd all accept losing the first two, away to Slovenia, home to Switzerland. But away to North Macedonia, and then especially home to Slovenia, we don't expect to lose those.
No.
So I think there's a
Slovenia match.
You could see us losing the first two and people not being too worried. I think if we lost all four, there'd start to be rumblings, let's say.
For sure.
Now it looks like Kev Morales, I don't think it's been announced yet, but it's looking more than likely that Kev Morales is going to be his number two. Don't know much about him. Obviously, I know about him as a player, but he was his coach at USG and at Monaco. But I don't know if you remember that Naismith said that he expected to be part of the new manager's team. Have you heard anything? I've not heard anything since about that. Have you heard if he's going to be in or out? Or
no.
Would you be quite happy for him to be involved, or would you rather draw a line under the old regime?
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one, and I kind of almost want to go with the I don't know answer. I think that there's pros and cons to both. I think obviously having a bit of familiarity, someone who knows the players in the squad as well, and obviously is going to be able to lend a bit of advice to Pocognoli as well, I think could be a good thing. But then again, exactly everything that we're saying about this breath of fresh air, this new eyes, coming in with a completely fresh perspective, is having someone like Naismith around going to affect that? Is he going to have, his own sort of biases to what was the ways before? I don't know. So I wouldn't be completely fussed either way, but the answer is I don't really know, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I'd have a preference for Poco picking his own team and bringing in his own players and starting afresh now. Personally, but I suspect that that's not what's going to happen, because Naismith sounded very confident when he said that they expected to remain. So. I expect he's going to be involved at least in a transition in some role for some time. Again, mate, you could imagine them saying for the Nations League, these 6 games, keep have him there in his transition up to the end of the year or something. You could imagine that.
Yeah. That would make
I
sense.
think it'd be good to have somebody Scottish in there that knows who the fringe players are, knows who Poco, because you start calling that because it's so much easier. Who Poco should be looking at, who your potentials. You know, I mean, I off the top of my head, I'm thinking Liam Lindsay. You know, that's probably somebody that's not on his radar that maybe was on Steve Clarke's radar that he could say, you know, go and check it. Liam Lindsay, you might think he's very, you know, his distribution is really good. I don't know. You know, he's better in attacking setups. But yeah, I think it'd be good to have somebody Scottish in there, whether it's Naismith or not.
I mean, the other thing I mean, something we talked about on a previous podcast. So again, you know, we really don't know Poco very much at all. But, you know, one of the things Sabine said was that he's really good at visualizing things and then explaining things to people as to what his vision is, communicating his vision. And she also said he's a really good manager, right? Like a people manager, okay? And he really looks at what's going to motivate individuals, you know, and what are the hot buttons for this person, what are the things that this person likes and so on. Okay, so that's brilliant anyway, okay? But to your point, Craig, about finding other players who maybe are not so much on the radar. So it's also, so I think he will be pretty good at trying to find some of those younger players and motivating others to go and find them. You know, but also where we've tried to recruit players who honestly can play for England or Scotland, or they can play for whatever other countries, you know, you felt like Steve Clarke's approach, and maybe it's unfair, but I always felt his approach was basically, look, pal, do you want to play or not? And if you want to play, that's great, and otherwise, that's fine. We've got enough, right? And I think that, I mean, I keep coming back to some of the players. I know it's an old record, but you know, so we need talent, right? And I think if there's somebody who's on the fence now, I've got far more confidence that Poco can go and sell a vision. You know, have a vision about what you're going to do, where are we going to go, you know, how are you going to play, how are you going to fit into the team? This boy's going to be going here. I mean, I just think he'll be able to do it. And I really don't think he'll just do you want to be in or not?
Honestly, I completely agree, and also I think that is, you know, is youth, if you will, for a managerial standpoint, will be a big part of that as well. Especially if you're talking about convincing young talent and stuff like that to come on board. I completely agree, and I think me and Craig's face lit up when you were saying that, because it's such a good point. Like, I do think they'll be a much better communicator at that, or at least you would hope so. And you don't know what Clarke was like, obviously, behind closed doors, but given these press conferences, I can't imagine that the meetings with young talent was particularly enlightening, but maybe that's just being extra critical for the sake of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, completely agree. I might be being unfair on Clarke in that, but it was one thing I always felt that he didn't seem to be very good at, you know, at selling the Scotland vision to players who were on the margin as to whether they choose us or choose somebody else.
Yeah, I think it's probably not a fair podcast to talk about the new manager without going into, do you guys have any sort of apprehensions? Are there any sort of big worries around the appointment that you have? Obviously, we're keeping positive. We want to be as optimistic as possible, but is there anything that comes to mind? Obviously, I think the formation might be just one, but is there anything that you are worried about?
I'm super positive about it, and I think the way they've gone around it as well, looking at going down the kind of data route rather than just picking someone that they've interviewed, I think that's really refreshing. I'm surprised the SFA have done it, but everything I read about this guy, it sounds good, and I think it's a positive mood, and I'm all for it. And if it doesn't work out, so be it. You know, they've thought outside the box and they've given it a bash. It wasn't Naismith, it wasn't McCann. Let's give it a bash and let's see what happens. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got the same opinion. I'm very positive about it. If I try and find some things to be worried about, right? So the formation's the obvious one, and we've talked about that. I think he'll be a bit more flexible than we've been worrying, but might be wrong. If I try and find other things that we can be worried about, well, obviously, you know, he doesn't know Scottish culture very well. He doesn't know Scottish football very well. I think he will get to know it, both, right? But you know, that can be a concern. You know, you might, if you know, you look at what Sabine said about him being a big family guy, still living in a suburb of Liège. You know, you could worry that will he actually put in enough time of coming to watch? You know, he'll come and watch, you know, the big clubs in England that have got Scottish players playing, go to Italy, go to Spain now for Robbie Eure, I hope, you know, come to Scotland to see Celtic and Rangers, and maybe, but you know, will he dig down enough? Will he turn up to whatever other games there are? You could worry about that. But then, Steve Clarke didn't live in Scotland either, right? And I know it was easier, right, from where, of course, it was, right? But still, so I'm in the spirit of, if you're looking for things to be worried about, that could be something. Then maybe you could be worried that he actually won't dig enough into where some of the other talent that's a little bit less visible within Scotland. But honestly, then I'm going to contradict myself and say he seems to believe in all the data. Okay, and I think he will develop a good team. That's something else that's been said. I think he'll get other people doing it. So I'm not really worried about it. But that would be something. If you were trying to find something, that's something.
I think it's fair to bring up these points as well. You know what I mean? You obviously want to go into detail with everything, but I agree. I think that overwhelmingly the reception that I've seen from most fans is positive. I think everyone's kind of in agreement that this is the direction that we had to push. So look, I'm just really, really excited. And I know I keep kind of overhashing that point, but it seems very, very refreshing to come onto these podcasts at the start of a new era. We're literally talking about what's going to be rather than what we want to see and what we know is not going to happen. So it's going to be exciting times.
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely buzzing.
I think we could win the Euros. Is it too early to say that? I think we're going to win it, guys. I think we're going to win
my sights are on 2030. To be honest with you, I'm going World Cup.
Right, I think we've covered everything. We all good? Should we go away and wrap this up?
Yeah, and we're going to do another one, Craig, when the squad's announced for the games, aye?
Yeah, once the squad's announced before the
because we'll have a lot more to talk about then, because we'll have much more idea as to whether he's bringing, whether there's any surprises, whether it's not, I don't want to say wholesale changes, but significant changes are actually only minor changes. We'll know much more then, to be honest. All right.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing who's in there. Any new faces, and to see if before then there might be a couple of guys that said they're going to retire as well. You don't know about Kenny McLean, Hanley. They might just.
I was just going to say we got the whole way through the podcast without talking about Hanley.
we have to put one name.
And you've spoiled it, Craig. That's all your fault.
No, I'm glad.
Well, I didn't mention Kieran Slicker either, so I might as well put him in as well.
I'm pretty confident that none of them are going to be in his first squad, but we'll see.
Slicker, man. Oh, brilliant. That's brilliant.
Right, we'll come back and wrap this up. Cheers, guys.
Right, okay.
Okay, it is the start of a new era. Pocognoli is at the wheel. That is a mouthful, but we're all super, super excited about this new era for Scotland. The Nations League games are coming up very, very fast, and I think we can all agree that we are buzzing to see how we get on in them. Craig, Dave, it was an absolute pleasure as always. Let's see when we're going to be lifting that Euro 28 title in Hampden Park. Well, at Wembley. That would be even better. But we'll see you all there. All right, in a bit, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
We know we ain't no football experts, but we all feel the same about the beautiful game. The game, no Scotland, no party.